The galaxy was wide, endless, and filled with countless stars. Civilizations rose and fell like tides across the stars. Most species remembered only their victories, their wars, their borders. Few ever kept record of the small things, the quiet deeds, the single moment where one life saved another. Humans were different. For them, even the smallest kindness was a story, a piece of memory carried across generations, written into songs, into books, into the quiet whispers of families around a fire. They remembered, and sometimes those memories lasted longer than empires themselves. It began in a forgotten time when humans were not yet powerful. They had only begun to stretch their ships beyond their home system, fragile machines carried by brave explorers. Their technology was still young, their engines slow, their hulls thin against the dangers of deep space. One such ship, the Horizon Dawn, carried 30 explorers far beyond the comfort of Earth. Their mission was to chart the unknown, and to leave behind markers for others who would follow. They believed they were prepared for anything, but space has always been a patient teacher, and it teaches harsh lessons. The Horizon Dawn suffered an accident in orbit of a barren moon. A fuel relay burst in silence, tearing holes through the ship's belly. Fire spread, then vanished into vacuum, leaving half the ship dead. Systems flickered and went dark. The crew scrambled for survival, sealing what they could, patching what they could not. For days they drifted, trapped in the shadow of the moon, the cold creeping deeper into their bones. Their signal stretched into the void, faint, broken, desperate. No one should have answered. The galaxy at that time was not kind. Most species looked inward, guarding themselves. Few cared about strangers. Most considered the suffering of others a distant problem. Yet the signal reached one listening ear: the Valeric. The Valeric were not a mighty empire. They were quiet builders, traders, lovers of calm rivers and open skies. Their worlds were rich in art and soft songs, but poor in warships. When the Valeric captain received the signal, he had a choice: ignore it and continue on his trade route, or answer it and risk his own supplies. He chose to answer. The Valeric ship, the Silver Current, altered course. It was not large, but to the stranded humans it was salvation itself. When the alien ship appeared out of the darkness, the crew of the Horizon Dawn stared with wide eyes. They had seen alien life before, yes, but never in such close and personal contact. The Valeric were tall, with soft crystalline skin that shimmered faintly in light. Their voices were melodic, and though communication was rough at first, they extended hands of aid without hesitation. They brought supplies, they stabilized life support, they carried the wounded aboard. One young human officer, still shivering from cold, whispered words that were recorded in the Horizon Dawn's final log. "We thought we were lost. But they came. They didn't have to, but they came." The Valeric never considered it great. To them, it was only a simple act of compassion. They dropped the surviving humans at a friendly outpost and went on with their travels. Within their own history, it was written as only a minor event, soon lost in the turning of centuries. But for humans, it was never forgotten. The Horizon Dawn survivors wrote detailed records. They told the story of the Valeric rescue again and again. Families carried the story like a sacred flame. In Earth's great libraries, the account was preserved under the title, The Silver Current's Gift. Every human child who studied the first age of exploration read the passage. Every cadet who joined the Deep Fleet knew the names of those 30 saved lives. For them, it was not just survival. It was proof that in the galaxy of cold stars, kindness could exist. Generations passed. Humanity grew. Their ships became stronger. Their colonies spread further. They learned to trade, to fight when needed, and to endure. The Valeric faded from sight, their quiet ways swallowed by louder empires and stronger neighbors. To most of the galaxy, they became a footnote, a small people lost in the flow of history, but not to humans. Among humans, the memory lived. They wrote songs about it. They taught their children, "One day, if the Valeric need us, we will remember. We will answer." It was strange to outsiders. Other species did not understand this human obsession with memory, with promises across time. To them, it seemed foolish. Why remember a single act of mercy performed centuries ago? Why carry it like a burden? But humans carried it anyway, and then much later, when the Valeric themselves faced the shadow of destruction, this forgotten kindness returned. Far away, in another age, The Valeric world dimmed under the threat of the Drexar Dominion, a warlike empire that consumed all in its path. The Valeric had no fleets, no armies. Their cities crumbled, their skies burned. Neighbors turned away, unwilling to risk their own safety. The Valeric sent signals for help, weak calls into the stars, believing no one would come. And yet across the galaxy, in the archives of human space, a message lit up. The transmission was faint, broken, but the name was clear: the Valeric. For others, it might have meant nothing. For humans, it meant everything. The name was like a bell rung in memory. Ancient records opened, the story of the Horizon Dawn told again. Commanders, politicians, citizens alike recalled the old tale. They saved us when we were helpless. They did not turn away. Now when they call, we will not turn away either. And so, the long memory of humankind stirred. This was not about treaties, not about politics, not about gain. It was about something simpler, something the galaxy often forgot: the return of kindness. The Valeric had saved 30 lives. Now humanity was preparing to return that act, not with a small rescue, but with something far greater. On the Valeric homeworld, silence reigned as the Drexar fleets prepared their final strike. The people looked to the skies with despair, believing no one had heard their cry. They thought they were alone. But deep in space, far beyond the borders of their dying empire, a fleet moved. Human ships, carrying banners of blue and white, engines burning bright against the dark. They were coming, because humans remembered, and memory, once awakened, could change worlds. The Valeric people had always lived quietly. Their worlds were soft with rivers and mountains, their skies clear and blue. They were artists, builders, and singers. They never dreamed of war, never cared for fleets of steel. For centuries they lived in peace while other empires fought and grew. But peace does not last forever in a galaxy filled with hunger. The Drexar Dominion came like a storm. Their ships were dark blades across the stars, their armies endless, their demands simple: surrender or be destroyed. The Valeric had no real defense. One world fell, then another. Cities burned. Their songs were replaced with silence. Desperate, the Valeric Council gathered. Messages were sent out across space, 1,000 cries for help. But the galaxy had grown cold. Neighbors closed their borders, unwilling to draw the Dominion's wrath. Allies turned away. Traitors cut their routes. One by one, every light of hope went dark. The Valeric believed they would be forgotten. On the homeworld, in a ruined communication tower, a broken signal flickered into the void. It was weak, a whisper carried by failing machines. The words repeated in simple code: "This is Valeric. We are falling. Is anyone listening?" No one expected an answer. Far away in human space, deep inside the archives of the United Earth Fleet, a quiet alarm chimed. The signal was faint, almost lost in the noise of cosmic radiation. An officer leaned closer, running checks. The name that appeared on his screen made him freeze. Valeric. He knew that name. Every cadet knew that name. It was taught in their first year of training. The story of the Silver Current and the 30 explorers saved. It was not just history. It was legend, the officer reported to his commander. The commander read the name again and again as if to be sure. Then he whispered the old words, almost like a vow: "We do not forget." Within hours, the news spread across the fleet. Messages passed through military channels, political halls, even ordinary homes. The Valeric were in danger. The same Valeric who had saved humans long ago. It did not matter that centuries had passed. It did not matter that most of the galaxy had forgotten. For humans, memory was not dust to be blown away. It was fire. And fire, once lit, spreads. In the capital of Earth, the Council of Nations gathered. Some argued for caution. The Drexar Dominion was powerful, far larger than any single human fleet. To act would be dangerous. To risk so much for an old memory seemed reckless, but others stood firm. They spoke of the Horizon Dawn. They spoke of the 30 lives that had once been saved when humanity was fragile and small. They spoke of the promise passed through generations: "If they ever call, we will answer." The debate grew heated, but in the end, one truth silenced all doubts: humans remembered. And humans repaid. The decision was made. A fleet would be sent. In the great docks of Mars, starships powered up. Their engines glowed with blue light, casting shadows across the red ground. Crews boarded. Officers prepared and families gathered for final farewells. They all knew the danger, but they also knew the purpose. Captain Elena Merrick stood at the window of her flagship, the Resolute Dawn. Her eyes were steady, her voice calm, but inside her heart beat fast. She had read the story of the Silver Current when she was a child. She remembered drawing pictures of Valeric ships in her schoolbooks. Now she would carry that memory into reality. "Set the course," she said. "We are answering the call." One by one, the ships of the fleet aligned. Light shimmered as their engines roared. Then they leapt into the dark, carrying humanity's promise across the stars. On the Valeric homeworld, the skies were filled with smoke. The Drexar fleet orbited above, waiting for the order to strike. The people gathered in ruined temples and underground shelters and shattered streets. They prayed not to gods, but to the faint hope that anyone would hear them. In the council chamber, the leaders sat in despair. "No one is coming," one elder whispered. "We are alone." But then a young operator cried out. A signal was entering their system. Dozens of signals. Ships unknown but approaching fast. The council stared at the screens, unable to believe. The elder shook his head. Impossible. No one would come, yet the screens did not lie. Ships were arriving. Their hulls shone silver and white, their engines blazing like small suns. At the head of the fleet, the Resolute Dawn broke through the darkness. For the first time in generations, the humans and the Valeric looked upon each other again. A transmission opened. On the screen appeared Captain Merrick. Her face was sharp, her uniform clean, but her eyes carried warmth. "To the people of Valeric," she said. "We heard your call. Long ago, when humanity was weak and lost, you saved 30 of our kind. You did not ask for reward. You did not ask for promise. But we remembered. And today we are here, not because of politics, not because of gain, but because you once showed us kindness." Her voice grew firm, carrying across the stars. "This is payback." The Valeric Council sat in silence, their hearts trembling. Tears fell from eyes that had not cried in years. They had believed themselves abandoned. Yet here was a fleet, sent across light years only because of an act long forgotten by all others. The eldest counselor spoke, voice shaking. "We saved a few lives. But you bring an army?" Captain Merrick smiled faintly. "Yes, because that is what humanity does. We repay. One life for 30, 30 for a world for a people. We remember. Always." The Drexar fleet moved into position, black ships gleaming with menace. They did not understand this strange alliance, nor did they care. To them, humans were only another obstacle, another target to crush. But for the Valeric, hope had returned. They looked up into their skies, no longer in despair, but in awe. For the humans had come. And with them came the weight of memory, the strength of promises, and the fire of a people who did not forget. The battle had not yet begun. But already the galaxy had changed, because a signal, weak and broken, had been answered. And when humanity answered, the stars themselves would listen. The Valeric skies were no longer silent. Where once there had been only the dark silhouettes of Drexar warships, there now shone new lights. Human vessels cut through the void, their engines glowing blue, their hulls reflecting the light of the nearby sun. From the ground, the Valeric people looked upward, shielding their eyes. They had never seen such ships before. The Drexar fleet was sharp, angular, terrifying, but the human ships looked alive, full of motion and energy. They were not as large as the enemy, not as many, yet they carried something else, the weight of promise. In the command center of the Resolute Dawn, Captain Elena Merrick stood tall. Around her, her officers worked with calm precision. The Drexar had numbers, weapons, and fear. But humans had something that could not be measured: memory, determination, and a refusal to give up. "Enemy fleet is moving into formation," reported her tactical officer. "They outnumber us nearly 4-1. Merrick's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll have to be clever. Humanity has never won by being stronger. We win by being unexpected." The Drexar commander, Admiral Karvek, sneered from the bridge of his massive flagship. To him, humans were newcomers, a species barely worth notice. Their decision to stand in defense of the Valeric was foolish. "Destroy them," Karvek ordered. "Make them regret this act." The Drexar ships began their advance. dark shadows spreading like a wave across space. The first volley of plasma fire burned bright, streaking toward the human fleet. Explosions blossomed in the void as human shields caught the impact. The resolute Dawn shuddered, alarms flickering, but the crew held steady. "Shields holding," said the officer at the console. Merrick leaned forward. "Good. Now show them what humans can do." The humans did not meet the enemy head-on. Instead, their ships scattered, breaking into small groups. They moved with sudden shifts and sharp turns, weaving through debris fields, hiding in the shadows of moons. The Drexar had expected a simple clash of fleets. Instead, they found themselves chasing ghosts. Small human frigates darted behind enemy lines, striking weak points and vanishing before a counterattack could land. Drones were deployed, broadcasting false signals to confuse Drexar sensors. One Drexar battleship fired at what it thought was a human vessel, only to realize it had wasted energy on a holographic decoy. Admiral Karvek snarled, "They are cowards.
Stand and fight!"
But the humans did not fight the Drexar way. They fought their own way. On the surface of the Valeric homeworld, crowds gathered on hilltops and rooftops. They watched the battle unfold in the skies. Every flash of light, every explosion, every streak of fire sent waves of fear and hope through their hearts. For centuries, they had believed themselves forgotten. Yet now a distant people fought and bled for them. The Valeric children whispered to each other, asking why the humans would do such a thing. Elders answered softly, "Because long ago we once helped them." The story of the Silver Current spread again among the people, carried like a prayer. Hope returned, the battle raged on. The Drexar were strong, but they were used to enemies who fought directly, who broke quickly under pressure. Humanity was different. Humanity was stubborn. In the control room, Captain Merrick gave calm orders. Frigate Wing 3 cut through their left flank. Use the asteroid field for cover. Cruiser Arcadia, target their supply ship. If we can cut their fuel, the larger ships will weaken. Each command was precise, not to destroy the enemy outright, but to unbalance them. Human ships fought like a tide, never still, always shifting, flowing where the enemy least expected. Then came the turning point. The Drexar flagship, fast and armed with devastating cannons, moved to break the human lines. Admiral Karvek prepared the final strike. "One barrage," he growled, "and they are finished." But before his order could be carried out, the Resolute Dawn and 2 escort ships appeared suddenly from the shadow of a moon. They had hidden there, silent, waiting for this exact moment. "Target their weapon banks," Merrick commanded. The human fleet opened fire, a storm of missiles and energy blasts. Explosions tore across the Drexar flagship's side. Weapons that were meant to crush the human fleet went dark in an instant. Karvek roared in anger. How did they—" But his officers could not answer. The humans had moved in silence, using the moon's gravity and shadow to mask their presence. They had struck when no one expected it. The tide began to turn. On the Valeric homeworld, cheers erupted. For the first time, their people saw the Drexar take damage, saw the enemy stumble. Tears fell from eyes that had only known fear. Children pointed at the skies and shouted the word that now carried new meaning: humans. In the council chamber, the Valeric leaders watched in awe. They had never seen such courage, such strange tactics. One elder whispered, "They are not fighting for conquest. They are fighting for us." But victory was not yet secure. The Drexar still had numbers and more ships were arriving. The humans were brave, but they could not hold forever. Captain Merrick knew this. Standing on her bridge, she looked at the battlefield map. Their fleet was scattered, holding lines where they could. The Drexar were pressing harder, desperate to crush them before the galaxy could learn of their struggle. Merrick spoke to her crew. Her voice was steady, but every word carried weight. "Remember why we are here. Not for glory, not for conquest. We are here because long ago 30 humans were saved. We repay that debt today. Every ship we lose, every risk we take, it is not wasted. Because humanity remembers, and memory is worth fighting for." The crew straightened, fire in their eyes. Whatever happened, they would not retreat. The battle entered its fiercest stage. Explosions painted the void, fire and light scattering across the black. Human ships twisted and turned, small against the Drexar giants but unbroken. Again and again the humans struck, not with brute force but with creativity. Mines disguised as debris, engines cut to drift silently, then reignited to ambush. Weapons fired in perfect timing, striking where shields were weakest. The Drexar roared in frustration, but humanity refused to fall. Hours passed. Both fleets bled. The humans were battered, but the Drexar were shaken. Their advance had been stopped, their flagship wounded, their numbers scattered. For the first time, the Dominion realized that victory was not guaranteed. And for the first time, the Valaric realized they might survive. When the battle slowed, Captain Merrick stood once more at her station. Reports filled her ears, ships damaged, lives lost, but the line still held. She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with resolve. "This is not the end," she said. "They will return with more. But today, we showed them something they cannot forget, that humanity remembers, that we repay, and that when we fight not just with ships, but with the weight of every promise we've ever kept." Her crew nodded. Beyond the windows of the Resolute Dawn, the stars burned. The enemy retreated, for now. The payback had begun and the galaxy had taken notice. The battle had raged for hours, yet the skies above the Valaric homeworld were far from quiet. The Drexar Dominion, though shaken by humanity's cunning tactics, pressed onward. Their black ships loomed like dark mountains in the void, their weapons blazing, determined to finish what they had begun. Yet the humans did not falter. Captain Elena Marek surveyed the chaos from the bridge of the Resolute Dawn. Her crew moved with practiced precision, following each command with unshakable focus. Explosions lit the distant horizon, plasma fire streaked across the void, and debris from shattered ships floated in the weightless silence. But Marek's mind was clear. She understood that raw strength could not win this fight. Humans had always relied on ingenuity, on courage, and on the bonds that united them. "Status report," she called. "Frigate Wing 4 is holding the northern flank, shields at 70%. Cruiser Arcadia disabled 2 enemy supply vessels. Overall damage is manageable," her tactical officer replied. Marek nodded. "Good, continue the plan. Keep them guessing. Remember, we fight not only for the Valaric, but for every promise humanity has ever kept." The Drexar Admiral Karvek had begun to notice a disturbing pattern. His fleet had expected humans to confront them directly, to form neat lines and die predictably. But the humans did not fight like others. They flowed through the battlefield, striking where least expected, vanishing before retaliation could land. "This is illogical," Karvek shouted to his bridge officers. "They are too small." "Too few, and yet they wound us. Every move, every strike calculated. They are unpredictable." One Drexar officer dared to speak. "Sir, it is as if they know our every move before we make it." Karvek's glowing eyes narrowed. "They are fools, but cunning fools. We will crush them. Prepare the orbital bombardment." But the humans had anticipated this. They had studied the Valaric planet and the surrounding orbits. Using natural asteroid belts as cover, they repositioned silently. Smaller frigates used gravity wells to accelerate past Drexar ships, striking from unexpected angles. Larger cruisers split into decoys and real formations, confusing enemy targeting systems. On the surface, Valaric children pointed at the sky, shouting excitedly. Look how they move." Elders smiled, tears in their eyes, unable to believe the courage of a species they had barely known centuries ago. The battle became a dance, a deadly ballet where humans led. Each strike weakened the Drexar, each retreat frustrated them further. The Dominion had power, numbers, and weapons, but the humans had strategy, coordination, and determination. "Captain, enemy flagship is maneuvering for a direct strike on Valaric Central." A young officer shouted. Marek's jaw tightened. "Not today." She tapped a series of controls. "Deploy Shadow Squadron. Use Asteroid Field Delta 9 for cover. Move silently. Prepare to strike the flagship's ventral engines." Moments later, the squadron vanished from the main battle radar. The Drexar, focused on the larger fleet, did not notice the small human ship slipping past their lines. In minutes, the Shadow Squadron reached the flagship. A coordinated barrage of torpedoes struck the ventral engines. Explosions rippled across the ship's hull. Systems failed. The flagship lurched, its weapons momentarily offline. Admiral Karvek roared, a sound of pure rage and disbelief. "Impossible. How?" The humans had shown him something no one had taught him. Bravery backed by intelligence could topple even the mightiest. Meanwhile, on the Valaric surface, citizens watched the skies change. For the first time, the enemy faltered. The human fleet, though smaller, struck with precision. Explosions on Drexar ships lit the darkness like fireworks. The people whispered ancient stories of courage to their children, drawing strength from the humans above. "This is their payback," one elder said softly. "For the lives we once saved, now repaid in full." Children repeated the word with awe, payback. It became a promise in itself, a bond between two species across time. But the battle was far from over. New Drexar reinforcements emerged from beyond the system, warships larger than any humans had seen. Their arrival threatened to overwhelm the fleet. Captain Merrick knew that human skill alone could not win the fight if the enemy brought such reinforcements. She turned to her tactical officer. "We need to change the battlefield. Draw them closer to the moon belts. Their numbers will work against them if they cluster. Prepare gravitational traps." The officer's eyes widened. "It's risky, Captain, but it could work," Merrick nodded. "Then we do it. Humanity doesn't back down from risk. We adapt, we survive, we win." The plan unfolded with precision. Human ships lured the incoming Drexar forces toward narrow asteroid channels. The enemy, confident in their firepower, pursued. And there, trapped by gravity wells and confined space, their massive formations became vulnerable. The humans struck again and again, hitting supply lines, engines, and weapon systems. Drexar coordination faltered. Chaos spread from above. The Valeric people cheered. They had never seen humans fight, yet they understood what was happening. Their fear had turned to hope, their despair to wonder. The humans were turning the tide. On board the Resolute Dawn, Captain Merrick looked at the tactical map. Every enemy ship that fell, every Drexar formation disrupted, was a reminder of the strength of memory. She spoke to her crew with quiet confidence. "Remember why we are here," she said. "Not for ourselves, not for fame. We are here because long ago the Valerics saved 30 of our people. We repay that debt today, and we will see it through no matter the cost." Her words resonated through the fleet. Each officer, each pilot, each crew member understood their role not as a simple mission, but as a continuation of history. Humanity remembered, and humanity acted. The Drexar Admiral Karvek realized too late that his numbers meant little against humans who fought with memory and purpose. His flagship was crippled, his supply lines cut, and his fleet scattered. The Dominion's advance slowed, hesitation creeping where once there had been certainty. Karvek's voice trembled with anger as he addressed his officers. They are not like any foe we have faced. They fight not for conquest, but for memory. They are relentless." Even in his frustration, he could not deny the truth. Humans were extraordinary. Hours later, as the battle reached a tense lull, the skies above the Valeric homeworld were scattered with wreckage, but also with shining vessels still intact. The humans had bled, yes, but they had not been broken. The Drexar were battered, confused, and forced to retreat, at least temporarily. On the ground, the Valeric people stepped into open squares, their eyes wide with disbelief. Their voices rose in unison, cheering the humans above. Songs were sung, not of old history, but of the present moment. For the first time in generations, they believed they would survive. Captain Merrick allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. She knew the battle was not over. The Drexar would return, but she also knew something the enemy did not. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and stubborn, and humans remembered. Memory was their weapon. Memory was their shield. And now, memory was reshaping the battlefield itself. The turning point had come. Humanity had shown that even against overwhelming odds, courage, intelligence, and the simple act of honoring promises could shift the fate of worlds. The Drexar had underestimated them. The Valeric had doubted their survival. And yet, against the shadow of fear, humans had shone brighter than the stars themselves. The Resolute Dawn and its fleet regrouped. Engineers repaired damaged systems. Pilots recalibrated their weapons. And Captain Merrick looked once more to the skies of the Valeric world below. "Today we proved something," she said softly. "We fight for more than victory. We fight because we remember, and the galaxy will know it soon enough." Far away, beyond the shattered enemy lines, signals traveled back to other worlds. News of humanity's courage, ingenuity, and unyielding honor began to spread. The legend of the Silver Current was alive again, and now it was being written across the stars in living, burning light. The Drexar would return. More battles would come. But humanity had shown the galaxy a simple truth. When humans repay a debt of kindness, The payback can change worlds, and for the Valeric, for humanity, and for the countless lives that would follow. That was enough for now. The battle had quieted. The Drexar Dominion for now had retreated, leaving shattered ships and fractured formations in their wake. Above the Valeric homeworld, the human fleet hovered, battered but unbroken. Smoke and debris drifted through the void, illuminated by the lingering fires of distant explosions. On the surface, the Valeric people stepped out from hiding, their hearts still pounding with disbelief. They had seen their saviors arrive, watched as humans had fought with courage, ingenuity, and honor. Their songs, long silent, now filled the skies again. Children ran through streets pointing to the stars, shouting the word that had become a legend: humans. For the Valeric, hope was reborn. For humans, it was not just a victory. It was a fulfillment of a promise. Captain Elena Merrick stood on the bridge of the Resolute Dawn, gazing down at the planet below. Her crew moved quietly around her, attending to repairs, recalibrating weapons, and helping the wounded from their own fleet. Though the battle was over for now, the task of rebuilding had only just begun. Merrick's voice was calm as she spoke to her crew. "We have done more than fight," she said. "We have shown the galaxy that humanity does not forget. Every act of kindness, every life we save, carries weight across time. The Valeric saved 30 of our people long ago, when humanity was fragile. Today we repay that debt, and that is what makes us human." Her words echoed through the fleet. Each officer, each pilot, each engineer felt the pride of being part of something larger than themselves. They were not only warriors, they were guardians of memory, keepers of promises that spanned generations. On the Valeric world, the council convened amid the ruins of their capital. Leaders and elders spoke with awe of what they had witnessed. For centuries, they had believed their quiet acts of compassion forgotten. Now the memory of their kindness had returned, carried across light years in the form of human ships and human courage. Elder Tiras, one of the oldest of the council, spoke softly but firmly. "They came not for glory, not for reward, not for politics. They came because we once saved lives. And in that memory, humanity has brought us back from the edge of despair." Young Valeric citizens listened in amazement. One child asked, "How can they remember something so long ago?" Tiras smiled gently. "Humans have a way of remembering. They carry the past with them, and when the time comes, they act. That is their strength." Across the human fleet, the effects of their actions began to ripple. Other species observing from distant systems took note. Rumors spread of humans who repay kindness, who fight not only for gain or conquest, but for promises kept across centuries. Stories of the Silver Current and the recent battle became intertwined, forming a legend unlike any other. Back in human space, historians and storytellers began recording these events. They did not merely write of victory or of clever tactics or of war. They wrote of memory and honor, of a species that valued promises so highly that they would travel across the stars to repay even the smallest act of compassion. And the story spread, not as myth, but as truth. On board the Resolute Dawn, Captain Merrick met with her senior officers. The battle was over, but the larger task remained: helping the Valeric rebuild, ensuring the Drexar would not return, and setting an example for the galaxy. Lieutenant Storym, her tactical officer, spoke first. "Captain, the Valeric are grateful beyond words. They wish to offer us trade, technology, even alliances. But I sense you do not lead this fleet for reward." Merrick shook her head. "No, we did not come for gain. We came because it was right. Because we remember. That is why humanity has always survived. Not because we are strongest, not because we are fastest, but because we honor the lives of those who helped us." Storym nodded. "Then the galaxy will remember this moment, just as we remember the past." The Valeric people, under human guidance, began the slow process of rebuilding their cities. Engineers and builders worked alongside human crews, learning new techniques and combining human technology with Valeric artistry. Schools reopened, children learned to read and write again, and songs once silenced returned to the streets. During this time, Captain Merrick walked among the Valeric people. She visited the site where the humans had first landed, where lives had been saved centuries ago. Standing quietly, she spoke softly to herself. Their act of kindness was small, but it carried weight. "We honor that by our actions today. And the memory will continue. Always. Her words carried not only to the Valeric people but to her crew as well, instilling a sense of purpose that went beyond any individual battle. News of humanity's actions spread quickly through the galaxy. Merchants, travelers, and diplomats shared stories of the fleet that arrived in the Valeric system not for conquest, but for honor. Neighboring species whispered among themselves, wondering if they too might find humans willing to answer their calls for help. Some began seeking alliances with Earth, not for fear, but for trust. Humanity's reputation had grown not as conquerors or tyrants, but as keepers of promises, warriors of memory, and friends of those in need. The galaxy was beginning to understand a truth long held by humans, that memory is power, and honor can shape worlds. Back on the Valeric homeworld, the Council formally met with the humans. Elder Tyrus addressed Captain Merrick and the assembled officers. "You have done more than save our people. You have restored our hope. You have shown the universe that kindness once given is never forgotten. Humanity's payback has not just changed our world, it has reminded us of what is possible." Merrick bowed her head in respect. "We are honored to help. And remember, it is not only humans who can change worlds. Any act of kindness remembered and returned can shape the future. That is why we act. That is why we fight." The Valeric leaders nodded, understanding not just the words but the philosophy behind them. In the days that followed, humanity helped repair Drexar damage, establish warning systems, and train Valeric crews in defensive strategies. The Valeric were grateful, but more than that, they were inspired. Their culture, once isolated and quiet, now intertwined with humanity's memory-driven ethos. They began to tell their own stories, not only of survival but of the humans who had repaid an ancient debt. Captain Merrick observed the progress quietly. Each day she noted improvements in both human and Valeric cooperation. Each day the galaxy learned a new lesson. Kindness, memory, and honor could be more powerful than fleets, more enduring than empires, and more inspiring than fear. Before leaving the Valeric system, Captain Merrick addressed both fleets one final time. "Today we return home, but remember this: the galaxy is full of lives saved and kindness given. Human memory carries these acts across time. If you help a human once, we will remember forever, and when the time comes, our payback can change worlds." Her words resonated far beyond the Valeric system. Across the stars, they were whispered, recorded, and carried on new ships. Humanity's legend had grown, not through conquest, but through courage, honor, and the repayment of ancient kindness. The Valeric people cheered as human ships departed, engines blazing, leaving trails of blue light across the sky. For them, the humans were more than saviors. They were a symbol of hope, of trust, and of the enduring power of memory. As the Resolute Dawn and the fleet left the Valeric system behind, Captain Merrick stood on the bridge looking into the infinite expanse. She knew that challenges would come again. She knew that enemies would rise, that darkness would try to swallow the galaxy. But she also knew this: humanity would never forget. And because of that, no act of kindness, no matter how small, would ever be in vain. The stars stretched before them, endless and full of possibilities. And humanity, carrying the weight of memory and the courage to repay, moved forward. For the Valeric. For the past, for the future, and for all the worlds that might one day learn what it meant when humans remember, honor, and act. The galaxy would remember them, because humans had returned the payback, and their payback could change worlds.